Good morning, everyone. Today I want to get into the hips a good amount, working through our Shin box series, getting into a little bit of posterior core through the glutes and some anterior core through some shoulder push-ups, elbow push-ups. I also want to see if we can fit in a little bit of baby roll work. So let's get started. We're going to start on our back, getting into our crocodile breath, making our big C shapes out of the hands, placing those hands below the ribs, below the 12th rib and above the crest of the hip bone. I want to be in that nice, juicy, meaty place of the abdominal walls, cinching in relatively tight with all the way through. I want to press the index fingers into the abdominals, side palms into the side body, and thumbs into the low back. And taking nice big breaths like you're trying to inflate your abdominal core like a balloon out in all directions. Up through the abdominals in the front, through the belly button, out through the side walls of the side body and into the low back. As you exhale, drawing navel into spine, allow your hands to cinch a little tight so that you have some resistance to expand your inhale into. And with each breath, see if you can expand a little bit more into that inhale. Can you start to feel a stretch? Can you feel a stretch out through the side body? Can you feel a light stretch into the low back? And when I say stretch, I'm really meaning just length. It may not feel like a muscle stretch. I want to feel that kind of expansion of muscle and fascia just kind of moving out. Exhale, full exhale, drawing navel all the way into spine. And I want to maintain that breath. We're going to slowly transition into our quadruped position, coming to hands and knees, spreading fingers wide as you can, grounding palms and extending the elbows fully without locking. Continuing to breathe in and feel that expansion of breath like a balloon. On the inhale, exhale, drawing navel into spine. And we're going to start by getting into some pelvic tilts. So on your inhale, as you fill up your belly, allow your pelvis to tilt down to the floor so that you get some sway in your low back. And on the exhale, as you draw your navel into spine, allow your pelvis to scoop. But keep this movement just at the pelvis. I don't want to reach through the upper back. I don't want to get any rounding in the upper back. I want to keep the upper back fixed, only moving pelvis, getting a nice sway in the back on the inhale. Exhale, scoop. And see how much anterior, how far can you go forward on your inhale without getting any kind of pinch or pain in the low back, and how much scoop on your exhale can you get without getting any pain or pinch in the back. Can you start to feel a little bit of stretch into that low back area on the scoop? Can you feel some stretch into the abdominals on your inhale as your belly goes to the floor? I want to continue with the pelvic movement. Now we're going to add a little bit of rock into our wrists. So as you inhale, we're going to rock our hips back, and as we exhale, scooping the pelvis, we're rocking forward, loading into the wrists. Inhale, rock back. Exhale, rock forward. And I want to be nice and grounded through the palms, and feel notice how does this feel at the wrists? How does the right wrist feel compared to the left wrist? Again, I'm trying to scoop as much as I can as I'm moving forward. I don't want to move into pain at the wrist, but I want to see if I can continue to feel this nice stretch through the low back. Now we're going to turn fingers out to the side, and we're going to move side to side. Inhale, scooping at the center. Exhale, inhale, filling up the belly, getting sway in the back at the center. Exhale as we scoop as you move to one side. Inhale to center. Exhale and scoop to the other side. Again, kind of feeling into the wrist space. How does this feel on the right wrist compared to the left wrist? We're going to turn fingers all the way back towards the knees. Hands, closer the hands are, the less intense. The further out we come, the more intense. I don't want this to be incredibly intense. Inhale as we rock forward, filling up that belly, getting a sway in the back. Exhale as we scoop back, hips to heels. Only going as far back as you can, comfortably at the wrist. But I want to still see how much of this mobility can we get at the pelvis. Inhale, pelvis tilts forward. Exhale, scooping the pelvis, drawing the navel into spine. Then we're going to flip our palms to the back, bending the elbows. Inhale down, exhale as we press the back of the palms lightly into the floor, seeing if we can feel some stretch at the elbows. I want to move, if you feel a stretch, I want to move lightly into that stretch and be kind of playful with it. Feel the stretch, inhale, allow it to bend, exhale, pressing into it. Can you get a little bit more extension on each one without forcing it? If you're able to extend the elbows fully without pain or discomfort at the elbows, then we can do a little rock back, hips to heels. Exhaling as you scoop, as you rock back. Inhale, belly opens up to the floor as you go forward. And we'll get our wrist a little bit of a break, kind of rolling them out, getting a little flow into them. And we're going to come back, nice spread hands, grounded palms. We're going to come back to our breath with our pelvic tilt. So inhale, belly goes forward. Exhale, drawing navel into the spine as we scoop. But we're going to add in some elbow spirals. So as you inhale, belly's opening up to the floor, getting a sway in the back. I want to spiral the elbow pits forward and feel the shoulder blades pack down on the ribs. So as I pack down, feeling the shoulder blades moving down towards the hips, the chest is kind of opening up towards the floor. Again, pelvis is tilting forward with this nice big open belly, sway in the back. As we exhale, drawing navel in and scooping, we're spiraling elbows inward and pressing into the floor. Feel the shoulder blades rounding up over the back as you press, as you scoop at the same time. Inhale, elbows spiral forward, belly opens up to the floor, head kind of lifts up to look forward. Exhale, as you spiral those elbows, pressing it out. See how much spread can you feel between the shoulder blades and at the low back with that scoop and spiral of the elbows and the pelvis. Inhale, opening up the chest and the belly. Spiral those elbow pits as far forward as you can. See how much can you feel that chest drop down naturally just from your shoulder blades packing down and back towards your hips. Again, we'll come off the wrist a little bit to give them a little bit of rest and flow. We're going to come back to our hands, but we're going to bring our hands forward a good amount. I want hips staying over knees as much as possible. I don't want the hips to rock back behind the knees. So hands come forward, nice spread hands, downward pressing hands. This is where I like to have that like gecko, like I'm a gecko and my hands aren't going to slip and slide. I'm pressing down like suction cups. Elbows are actively extended. We're going to come back to our breath with our pelvic mobility in this position. So as you inhale, belly opens up, get a big sway in the back. Exhale, drawing the navel into the spine. See if you can feel that light stretch or lengthening in the low back as you exhale. Inhale, can you feel that opening up stretch through the belly? As you're starting to feel this, now we're going to add in dropping the chest. As you exhale and scoop, you're going to reach the sternum down towards the floor, continuing to press through the palms. So we're scooping the pelvis as we exhale, drawing navel into spine, chest reaches down towards the floor. Inhale, we're coming up, pelvis tilts forward, belly opens up to the floor. Exhale, drawing the navel in as we scoop and reaching the chest down. I have a lot of different cueing going on. There's a lot of little different pieces to this. It's going to be hard to keep it all together. That's fairly normal. These kind of movements take practice to build into the neurology to where they feel easy. So if it feels challenging, I would look at that as a good thing. We're just trying to get that nice exhale as we reach down. Notice how this stretches around the shoulder region, especially around the armpits. Also notice, does one hand feel like it pushes down into the floor better or harder than the other hand? Does one hand feel unstable on the floor compared to the other? And can you feel that instability at the shoulder blade where it connects to the rib cage? Those are going to be important assessment points to take notice of, especially in this particular movement. So on the next one, as you are exhaling, dropping down with that nice scoop, I want to stay down. We can come back into our breath, opening up the belly, exhale, scoop, but I want to stay in this downward tension, bringing in our breath into this position. Can you get that nice sway in the back, opening up the belly without pain or discomfort? Exhale, scooping the pelvis in. Does that change the stretch and load at the shoulders? After a few of these, on your next exhale, with a scoop, hold the scoop. And now we're going to slide, we're going to press through our hands, push our hands forward, which are going to slide the hips back, and the shoulder blades will come up to the ears. And then we're going to pull from the hands so that the shoulder blades slide down the ribs. Exhale, push. Inhale, pull. And as we push, we're still scooping with that exhale. Inhale, pelvis is tilting down towards the floor as we open up that belly with our breath. Can you feel that nice slide up and down of the shoulders along the rib cage? We'll go ahead and come out of that, rest the shoulders a little bit. Did that feel different on the left shoulder compared to the right shoulder? Again, important assessment points, noticing, kind of really noticing for any kind of shoulder instability, neurological instability specific to the shoulders. So let's go ahead and we're going to stay in our quadruped a little longer. We're going to tuck the toes, specifically the back toe, the big toe, heels turned in as much as you can. so that just the big toe, primarily the big toe, is loaded. Exhale, as you scoop, we're going to sink our hips back and load the big toe joint. Inhale, filling up the belly, pelvis tilts forward. Exhale, scoop as you sink into the heel, into the big toe joint. Start to notice, how does that right big toe feel compared to the left big toe? How about the arches of the feet? How does the right arch feel compared to the left arch? Does one side feel stiffer, less mobile? Maybe one side just feels more, maybe you have better feel on one side and the other side almost feels disconnected, or even maybe not quite numb, but like neurologically numb. Like it's hard to feel what's going on in the joint. Those are, again, good assessment points. Again, inhale as you go forward, belly opens up, big sway in the back. Exhale, scooping the pelvis as you draw the navel into spine, feeling that load into the big toe joint. Now we're going to bring our knees a little closer together, turn the heels out, and tuck the outer toes all the way to the pinky toe. Doing the exact same thing everywhere else. Inhale as we come forward, belly opens up. Exhale, drawing navel into spine as you sink hips to heels. How does that feel at the level of the ball of the foot to the outside toes, as well as the outside arch of the foot, left side compared to the right side? All right, so now we're going to get into our wide V sit, actively reaching the back of the knees down into the floor. I want to feel that action of pressing the knees down so that you feel your quads tighten up. I want the quads to kind of stay tight. I don't want you to flex the quads. I want you to actively reach the back of the knee down so that you feel tightness in that contraction in the quads. At the same time, we're pulling the dorsum of the foot, the top of the foot, back like you're trying to fold your foot backwards and touch it to the shin bone. Both of those actions should make the quads kind of light up a little bit. Hands can come back behind the hips, grounding down, and we're going to spiral those elbow pits out as we press down so that we feel that chest naturally open up towards the ceiling. Now we're going to do our spirals through our knees, reaching the knees out and away, seeing if you can, like you're trying to touch the outside part of the knee to the floor. Inhale as we come to center. Exhale as we turn the knees in, like you're trying to touch the inside of the knee to the floor. With each one, squeeze in to that end range a little bit more without going into pain or pinch. I would definitely want to avoid any kind of pinch or pain. And this is a good one to notice. I want to be really focused on the smoothness of the movement in between each end range. How does it feel on the right hip compared to the left hip? Is one hip more sensitive than the other? Does one go farther when you spiral out? Does one go farther when you spiral in? Where do you feel more tightness and tension? Is it at the hip? Is it at the back of the knee? And we're going to keep our knees actively reaching down. We're going to bring our weight off our hands. And now we're going to get into a little bit of fold work. This is where I like to think of my hands as a wave moving up a beach. We're going to exhale as we let our hands reach forward. Inhale as we bring our hands back. like we're moving up the wave of a beach and then receding back into the ocean. I want to keep both hands perfectly square. I want to reach evenly with both hands. I don't want one hand reaching a little further than the other. With each one, we're seeing if we can reach both together a little bit further. But I want to notice if that creates any more tightness or restriction in the low back or in one hamstring more so than the other. And then we're going to start working a little bit side to side. Reach a little bit to the right side and a little bit to the left side. Now I want to keep my hands reaching evenly here. My hands are going to be square to my shoulders. So as I turn to one side, my shoulders are turning with, and I want to keep both hands reaching evenly. Again, I don't want one hand going further than the other. This will put a little bit more stretch into that low back, which will give us a nice assessment point. How does this feel when you reach to the left compared to reaching to the right? When I reach to my right, I can go farther. When I reach to my left, I feel more stretch or tension in the back of my left knee and in my right side low back. Again, really valuable assessment points. I can give you there's reasons that I'm feeling what I'm feeling in my body based on injury history. And these are kind of constantly things that I have to work on in order to maintain mobility. All right, so now we're going to work on using our V-sit as a transition into our shin box. So from our V-sit, hands can come down to the floor to support in whatever way feels comfortable. We're going to spiral both knees to our left. And as we do so, we're going to let the knees bend to bring us into our shin box position. And then we're going to reach and extend through the heels, reaching out as we spiral back into our V-sit, and then doing the same thing to the other side. If the hands need to be on the floor as you go through this, that's fine. Again, where this is just bringing in some simple mobility work. How does this feel moving into your shin box to the left and then back into your V-sit compared to how does it feel moving to your shin box on the right and then back into your V-sit? Do you need to use your hands more on one side? Do you feel more tightness in parts of your hip or your low back on one side? Again, really good and useful assessment points. As we get to our to the next side shin box, we're going to go ahead and stay there for a moment, planting that outside hand down, spiraling that elbow out and away, loading down through the shoulder blade, lifting up to the sternum. We're going to do some hip opening on that back hip. Lightly lifting that knee up towards the ceiling, bringing it back down to the floor. I want to come back to our breath as well. As the knee comes down, we're inhaling. As our knee lifts, we are exhaling, drawing navel into spine. Inhale, filling up that crocodile breath or that balloon breath. Exhale, navel in, squeeze slowly at that top. See how much can you open up. After about 5 of those, we're going to go back through our V-sit to the other side and do the same thing. Again, I want to use this V-sit as a nice little mobility transition. Outside hand comes down, grounded palm, spiral that elbow out and away, grounding through the shoulder, opening up through the chest, lifting up that back knee. Start with the crocodile breath, inhale, exhale, navel to spine as you lift and open. How does this hip feel compared to the previous hip? Does it go as far? Does it feel a little tighter? Is it more restricted? Is it painful? I want to make sure we are not moving into a painful position. If it's not painful, we're seeing if we can exhale and squeeze a little bit more range on each one. Again, My left hip is generally my chronically tight hip. This side doesn't move quite as well, although it generally moves a lot better after doing my mobility work. Again, after 5, we're going to open up back into our V-sit, shin box to the other side. And now I want to get into our anterior hip mobility. Back hip is what I want to focus on. So I'm in my left side shin box, left hand is grounded, spiraled out, chest is facing to the left. This is to my left knee, this left side shin box. Right hip is the one I want to focus on. I want to see if I can reach the floor with my right hip. It does not have to touch, but I'm reaching to it. If it does touch, great, not a big deal one way or the other. And then we're going to lift and roll that hip over the top of the left hip, scooping into it as we exhale, drawing our navel into spine. Inhale, filling up that belly breath, reaching the hip back to the floor. Exhale, navel to spine as we scoop into it. Can you feel that a little bit of stretch moving into the anterior compartment of the hip and down into the groin as you scoop? If you're having trouble feeling that, it might be that there's some tension through the TFL or the tensor fasciae lata, or that you're just not quite getting enough scoop on your exhale. I want to really move that tailbone like you're trying to reach it forward as you roll that hip. After 5, we're going to transition back through our V-sit. Same thing to the other side. Outside hand, now I'm on right side, right hand's down, spiraled elbow, open chest. Left hip is the one we're now focusing on. Can you start by, can it touch the floor? Does it feel like you can get the same level of depth in this hip as you could the previous hip when you started? And then we're going to lift up as we exhale, drawing navel into spine and lightly scooping into it. Inhale, filling up that crocodile breath as you reach the hip to the floor. Again, these are really good assessment points. Can you get both hips to reach the floor to the same degree? Like I cannot get my left hip. It can lightly touch, but I don't have it. It doesn't load quite as much as my right hip did. I have more tension in the left hip, especially as I move forward, which is part of what's preventing me from getting it back. So I want to really get to notice these things, because where I have greater restriction on one side compared to the other is an area that I want to apply a little bit more focus into my movement. Where my body cannot go is where I want to get movement working better. So I want to really notice where I don't move well. Again, after 5, we're going to transition back through our V-sit, come back to the other side. We're going to do the same thing, but we're now going to add another layer. So again, reaching hip down and back. Again, my right hip, man, it just feels so much different on this side than my left. I want to really start to get good and sensitive at feeling the differences in the balance between the sides. As you exhale, rolling it over, scoop, drawing navel into spine. Now we're adding in our reach, like we've got a piece of bread, and I want to hand that bread off to Skeletor in the corner. I'm scooping into this. At the same time, exhale, scoop, and reach. By adding all that together, I should still have this first stretch from this movement in that scoop, and then when I reach, I don't want to lose that stretch. I'm adding to it. My reach should draw that stretch up into the abdominals. If you're losing that first stretch, it probably means that you're losing your active scoop. You're no longer actively moving into it, and that pelvis is now tilting anteriorly instead of moving into a posterior tilt. See if you can hold and continue with that scoop so that you feel that that stretch, draw up. And see how far can you reach fingertips from the point of where that back knee is touching. It's like you're trying to reach through the floor through the knee and reach through your fingertips and extend away. We'll go back through our V-sit, shin box through again to the other side. Hopefully you're noticing that your V-sit, that transition is smooth, getting a little smoother. Grounded palm, spiraled elbow. Inhale, crocodile breath. Exhale, scoop. And then adding in our reach and rotation. Oh, and this side's so much tighter than the other side. So again, my left hip is tight, so as I scoop into it, this is a tighter stretch, but then it's also means that my rotation doesn't move as well. I'm tighter and more restricted through rotation of my spine. Part of the reason these are great assessments is we can start to notice how something in the hip is going to be related to movements in the spine and up into the shoulders. It's like, why does my shoulder hurt? Well, maybe it's because of something in the hip, or maybe it's even down in the foot. Again, with each one, we're seeing if we can get a little bit bigger reach through the knee, all the way through the fingertips. Then we're going to V-sit back across to the other side. So once we get to the other side with this grounded palm, we're going to do the same movement through the hip, rolling the hip over the top, scooping into it on the exhale. Inhale, dropping it back down. Except now we're going to bring our hand off the floor. This hand is going to come up and across, like we're reaching our elbow up to the ceiling, forearms just moving across the head. Inhale, letting that hip drop down like it's trying to touch the floor. Exhale, scooping into it. And now as we scoop, we're going to lift up and reach to the ceiling with our elbow. We're also reaching down through this same side hip, trying to get nice and long. At the same time, I'm still scooping the pelvis forward. Inhale, letting the hip bones soften back to the floor. Exhale, scoop first. Again, I want this first stretch, and then I want to apply second stretch, reaching down through the hip, up through the elbow. As you exhale, drawing navel into spine. Inhale as we come back to center, filling up belly. Exhale as we get nice and long. Then we'll bring that across to the other side. Going through our V-sit still. So again, start with the hand down so we can get back into feeling this back hip, dropping to the floor and reaching over. Then we're going to bring our hand up and across, elbow high to the ceiling. Inhale, let that back hip soften down to the floor. Exhale, scooping into it and lifting up through the elbow as we reach down through the same side hip. Opposite hip is scooping, same side hip is rooting down into the floor as the elbow lifts up tall. Inhale as we sink the back hip back to the floor. Exhale, scoop and reach. Again, I want to continue to have this back stretch, this scooping in stretch remain as I reach through the elbow and reach down through this hip. I want to feel this first stretch, and then I want to see if we can feel some stretch kind of more through the low back or side body on this opposite side. Can we feel kind of a nice continuous stretch through the front of the hip into this side body? We're going to go ahead and V-sit back across to the other side. Now we're going to get into our folds. Again, I've been focusing a little bit more on the folds reaching through the shin as opposed to reaching through the arrow of the knee. So when I come back to square shoulders, as we reach and fold, I want fingers remaining perfectly even. I don't want one hand reaching further forward than the other. It's going to help keep our chest square. Inhale as we're sitting up. Exhale, again, like a wave moving up a beach. Hands reach forward. Inhale, hands reach back. I want to keep this knee a little bit open. I don't want it to be super tight where the heel is tucked underneath. I want it out and away so that we have a nice square shin and that we can reach evenly through with both hands. Inhale, fill up that belly breath. Exhale, drawing navel into spine. Then we're going to go through our V-sit and go to the other side. It's doing the same thing. So both hands staying nice and square and even as we exhale. Inhale like a wave receding down the beach. Exhale, reaching up the beach. How does this feel on this side? Where do you feel the stretch? How is it different than it was on the other side? Are you finding that one side it's harder to keep your hands even than the other side? That's going to give us some pretty clear indication of some immobility related to the low back and the hips in that relationship. So that can be, again, really beneficial assessment point. After 5, we're now going to transition back through our V-sit to the other side. And now we're going to do a little bit going side to side. Except I'm going to add one more little thing to this. I want to come back to our back hip, rolling over the top, scooping, and then adding in our reach. As we inhale, that back hip gets to drop down, going into our V-sit to the other side. Exhale as back hip scoops going forward, then going into our fold. Again, I want to see if we can feel that light stretch on the back hip. Can we keep that stretch as we reach forward into our shin and get some stretch through the back of the opposite hip? Can we feel 2 stretches at once? One on the front of this back hip and one on the back of our front hip, the side that we're reaching towards. And how does that feel when you are moving to the left compared to moving to the right? Now I want to start to play with opening up that back hip as we go into our shin box. So as you spiral into your shin box and you start to fold or reach forward with your hands, you're also going to start to slide that back leg back a little bit. Start small. It doesn't need to be a big reach on the first one. I want to make sure it's not painful first. And we're going to continue to transition through the V-sit to the other side. Reach and forward with the hands evenly as you reach back through that back foot. See how much can you do this movement without using your hands. If you need to use your hands, that's okay. But are you able to transition smoothly through one position into another without now using your hands. Again, simply working, this is a kind of smoothing out mobility of the joints and working more on the quality of the movements. Working our neurology, can you transition from one movement to another smoothly? So now we're gonna, let's come back to one side shin box. Now we're gonna start working up to knees, coming into our shin box to knees. I wanna make sure though first that this is not painful on the knees. So for the first rep on each side, I wanna use our hands. Placing back hand behind the hips, front hand in front, using the hands as much as you need to push through both knees, coming up into a nice upright position, scooping the pelvis at the top to feel a little bit of stretch through the front of the hips, and then using the hands to bring the hips back to the floor, going into our V-sit, and then same thing to the other side. Using the hands, making sure that the knees feel safe. If you got crepitus in the knees, like it's kind of grindy, if it's a little uncomfortable, if they're sore, then I want to continue to use the hands. If it's painful, then I want you to skip this movement and I want you to talk to me. If it's not painful and you can start doing this without using your hands, then we're going to drive through both knees to press up. Again, get that scoop at the very top. See if you can kind of feel your glutes tighten up. And on the way down, I want to reach back through the hip, reaching forward through the hands slowly. See how far back can you reach your hips before they touch the floor. Into our V. Same thing to the other side. Driving through both knees, scooping at the top. See if you feel your glutes fire up. And then reach back through your tailbone. How far back can you reach before your hips touch the floor? Going back and forth, side to side. Connect your breath to each phase of the movement. Exhale as you're coming up. Inhale as you're reaching the hips back. Exhale and inhale as you transition from one side to the other, so that you're ready to exhale as you drive through the knees, and inhale as you reach back. See how smooth you can start to get through the movements, transitioning from one side to the other. All right. So now we're going to get onto our back. And I want to work a little bit of baby rolls in. So arms are coming up to overhead. Bring them out a little bit into more of a Y position. I want to make sure that the elbows are softly on the floor. If you find that your arms aren't able to touch the ground easily, let them come out a little bit further until you feel them rest. If there's tension in the shoulders, or you're finding this position is difficult to get into, this is a good area to kind of schedule a session with me and talk to me. From here, I want to go very, very slowly. We've done a decent amount of mobility through the spine, so if you've got some pain in the low back, then I want to be very, very cautious here. In fact, I probably want to skip this if you have low back pain associated with rotation. And if this movement hurts at all, I want you to back off of it and contact me. So we're coming back into our nice big belly breath. Inhale, filling up the crocodile. Exhale, drawing navel to spine. We're going to lightly press through our left heel as we reach with our left hand across the body, seeing how far are you able to reach, keeping that heel in contact with the floor. Inhale, we're coming all the way back. Exhale, Same thing to the other side. Starting slow, focusing on our breath. Inhale into the crocodile at the center. Exhale, drawing navel into spine as you reach. Again, light push through the heel. Your hip is allowed to come up off the floor on this, but I want to stay in contact with that heel. And as we're doing this on each one, you're seeing if you can reach further through your fingertips, and with that heel that's staying in contact with the floor, start to reach through those toes away from the fingertips. How long can you feel from fingertip to toe tip? And can you feel one long continuous stretch through the shoulder, into the low back, down into the hip? Or do you feel it very specifically in just one place? Maybe you feel it at the shoulder, maybe it's the low back. Feeling it in one place in particular is really good assessment point. We want to get to where you're feeling the long continuous stretch and it's not hyper-focused on just one location. We're going to come back to our starting point. Same belly breath, but now we're going to reach through the feet. You're going to lift your leg up a little bit, and we're going to reach high. I don't want to let the foot drop down to the floor. So we're reaching high like we're reaching onto a shelf or onto a couch or a chair. The back arm, I want to keep something in contact with the floor. The back of the hand is fine. It does not need to be the shoulder. The shoulder can roll up off the floor a little bit. As you reach those toes, inhale as you bring it back to center. Exhale as you go to the other side. Again, shoulder can come off the floor, but I want to remain some contact through the back of the hand or the back of the arm. Start small on these reaches. Slowly start to apply more length. Like you're reaching and extending through your toes. After the second or third one, as you're reaching through the toes, reach away through the fingers of the hand that's staying in contact with the floor. How long can you get from fingertip to toe tip? And how does it feel on the right side compared to the left side? And where do you feel it? So we're going to come back to center. We're staying on our back for a moment. Now I want to turn these into actual baby rolls. So we're going to come back to the reaching through our hands. Now again, I want to make sure that this is not painful. We're going to reach through our hand, head has to lift up, and we're going to continue to reach. And I want to see if we can roll from our back to our belly, this time without pushing into our heels. So I want this heel to remain in contact with the floor. We're going to reach. I want to see how smooth and how far can you go. You're continuing to reach like your fingers are moving across the floor, and they're going to pull you from your back to your belly. Once you get onto your belly, we're going to do some upper back mobility. So from here, I want elbows super tight to the ears. I want to really rub my upper arm onto my ear. We're going to lift that elbow up towards the ceiling. And we're also going to turn our heads and look up through our eyes. And that's going to start to reach us over, like we're trying to roll over onto our back. I want to keep my knee on the floor on this. The knee can slide up a little bit and away. Inhale. We're going to bring it back to center, and we're going to do the same thing on the other side. Lifting that elbow up and away, looking up into the corners of our eyes. As we exhale, Let that other knee slide up, maintaining contact with the floor. As we go back and forth, notice, is this easier to do on the right side? Does one side feel stiffer? My left side, my left shoulder is generally kind of a little chronically irritated. It feels tighter. I have less mobility on my rotation when I lift up to this side. That's an important thing that we want to take notice of, especially if it's more so than it is on the other side. My right side, it's like, oh, super smooth. This is easy. This will be relevant to swimming stroke. When I swim, I have trouble breathing, not trouble, but it's just more challenging to breathe on my left side, largely because I lack thoracic rotation. Compared to my right side is generally the easier stroke in order to get my head out of the water and get a good breath in. Now that we've kind of got this movement, as we're reaching and rolling, I want to continue to reach and roll. Again, the knee can slide up, and we're going to roll all the way back to our back. So now we have the ability to go from belly to back and back to belly. Now I want to work this as a full baby roll. So we're going to reach across, seeing how smoothly can we reach through those fingers, not pushing through the heels, not lifting a leg. I want to keep the legs soft and relaxed. Going from back to belly. We're going to keep rolling in the same direction, so the opposite arm is now going to lift up, looking up through the corners of our eyes as we roll from belly onto our back. And then we can go into the opposite direction. Can you reach across? Again, I don't want to push through this foot. I want the legs to be soft. Are you able to reach and extend through the fingertips and the eyeballs? And can those fingertips pull you across smoothly from belly back to belly? Then we switch to the other hand, lifting up, looking out the corners of our eyes, and going from belly to back. This is a movement I want to work on. How smooth can we transition through our roll from one side compared to the other? As I reach through my left, it's pretty smooth. Going from back to belly, as I reach through my right, from belly to back, it's pretty smooth. But it's harder when I reach from right across from back to belly. And it's harder when I lift from left, from belly to back. Again, this is an amazing assessment point. This is going to give us a lot of really important detail about what's going on in our gait mechanics. And it's great movement. If you're finding that it's harder to transition in one direction, this is a movement that I would work on quite a bit in order to get it to smooth out. Probably some use for a foam roller as well, and other mobility issues specific to where you're feeling the lack of mobility. Again, those are going to be good points for consultation. Let's go ahead and come back to our back, making our big C shapes with our hands. One hand below the rib, the other above or both hands below the ribs and above the hip bone, squeezing into the abdominal wall. Inhale, fill that balloon, pressing out on the thumbs, the side palms, and the index fingers evenly. Exhale, drawing navel into spine and squeezing the hands in to create more resistance for your inhale. And with each breath, see if you can inflate just a little bit more. And kind of take note. Is your breath improved? Can you fill up that space a little bit more? Is it a little bit more balanced on each side? After a few breaths, we'll take our hands down and relax. I want to bring our breath up into our chest and into our neck, filling up the entire breathing apparatus, filling up into tension, noticing if there's any tension in the neck, any tensions in the shoulders, upper back. Exhale, allow that tension to just melt into the floor. And this is a good place to spend a minute or two, just breathing, filling up tension. Exhale, allowing that tension to melt, noticing heart rate start to soften, noticing your respiration start to soften. Feel your whole body just kind of soften into the floor. And when you're ready, go ahead and open your eyes and slowly get up.